with CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein and CNN political reporter Maeve Reston. So let's start with these accusers. The Washington Post publishing an account from a woman named Kristen Anderson who claims, by the way, parental advisory, you might want to mute the TV for a second, who claims that Donald Trump slid her hand up and under her skirt and touched her private parts before Anderson pushed his hand away. Not to put too fine a point on it, he grabbed her vagina, which is exactly what is on that tape.
What he said
he does.
She said he did exactly what he said he did. Look, I mean, I think it's going to be very hard for average Americans to adjudicate each one of these individual cases. I think the clear question for Trump is we have so many accusations from so many sources of varying kinds of inappropriate behavior that ranges from sexual harassment to sexual assault, and he is a candidate who, even before all of this was happening, was facing historic deficits among one voting bloc in particular, college-educated white women. The most any Republican has ever lost among them is 8 points. Three polls out this week with Hillary Clinton 30 points ahead among college-educated white women, 4 times the biggest deficit we've ever seen for a Republican, and that is what makes Virginia so difficult, if not impossible. It's what makes Colorado. It's what makes the suburbs of Philadelphia, makes Pennsylvania. That has been a kind of a headwind for him from the beginning. And you got to think that amid all of this, it's only going to get bigger.
But I mean, what's so startling about all of this, Jake, is the way that Donald Trump has been responding to it. I mean, watching his rallies over the last couple of days and even today, coming out and talking about these women and saying things like, I don't think so, or look at her.
He's saying for the second day in a row, he basically suggested that these women are not attractive enough for him to sexually assault.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't understand. Again, it gets back to Donald Trump's core problem, which is that he never tries to expand beyond his base. Right. But if he really was serious about addressing these issues, I don't think he would be going out there insulting all of these women, because even the women who are voters who are out there parsing through these different allegations, trying to understand if they're true or not, for him to have that kind of behavior is just a total,
And it's not only the way he's dealing with the women, but think about placing this in the context of a kind of worldwide conspiracy to advance a globalist agenda. It really goes
he's sounding more and more conspiracy theorist.
And it really goes to Maeve's point. Donald Trump, as we talked about before, is at risk of being the first Republican nominee ever to lose among college-educated white voters, a group that usually votes Republican. Even Lyndon Johnson did not win most college-educated white voters.
Lyndon,
right? And so now, I mean, when you listen to this rhetoric, it's pretty clear that Donald Trump does not have, their campaign is not putting a lot of emphasis on trying to convert what we consider the existing electorate, those kind of swing voters, suburban swing voters. So much of what he is doing seems to be betting that there is, in fact, this hidden army of culturally conservative, blue-collar, alienated voters who are going to come out if he goes as far, turns it up to 11 on basically his attacks on the Clintons, his attacks on the media, his attacks on the political system, and kind of this kind of conspiracy theory. Everything he is doing
puts it full Breitbart.
Right, full Breitbart. Puts at further risk the already weak position he has in places like the suburbs of Charlotte and the suburbs of Philadelphia and the suburbs of Denver.
Who's around him, Maeve? Who has the ability to tell him, stop suggesting that you would never sexually assault this woman because she's not attractive enough for you. Stop even bringing this up. Talk about trade. Talk about issues.
I mean, I think, clearly Donald Trump does have some skilled people around him. Kellyanne Conway was a very well-respected pollster and has talked to him about, adjusting his tone. I just don't think he's demonstrated the entire time that he wants to listen to what anyone has to tell him. We had all those stories earlier this year about interventions by his children. Ivanka Trump is now back out on the trail. You have to imagine that people are having these conversations with him, and he's saying, I'm going to do what I want. And he goes out there and throws the red meat.
Ron, you're a numbers guy. You study this data better than anybody I know. And I guess here's the question. Is there a chance he's right? Is there a chance that that alienating minority voters, alienating college-educated white women and some college-educated white men, that ultimately there will be, that you see in the size of his crowds, that actually he will win just by winning northern Wisconsin, winning the middle Pennsylvania?
Right. Oh, that is the question, right? There are millions of people who don't vote, right? Lots of people in every demographic category who are eligible to vote don't vote. And so there are tens of millions of non-college white voters who, by the polls, would suggest are sympathetic to this message, who don't vote. If he can disproportionately turn those out relative to everyone else, then then maybe that theory works. The problem is he doesn't have a secret earpiece, right? He can't just talk to the people he wants to talk to. Everybody hears it. And the fact is that the kind of the polarizing, the racially barbed polarizing message, the question about the role of women, everybody else hears that as well. So it's hard to imagine that what he is doing can simply turn out his forces without turning out everyone else. It's more likely that given the dissatisfaction with both of these candidates, the turnout might even be down from 2012.
Exactly. I mean, that's the one thing I think that the Clinton campaign is so worried about, is if it starts to look like the race is really not close at all, that they can't get their people excited and can't get their people out there. But I think that's why, you know, you have Michelle Obama and President Obama on the trail this week really making this argument that, you know, a vote for a third-party candidate is throwing away your vote, et cetera. I mean, they are really trying to activate those younger voters to get them out to the polls. Clearly, they're not excited about Hillary Clinton, and we'll see if that works.
That's where her problem is really concentrated with younger voters.
Ron Brownstein, Maeve Reston, thank you both so much. Really appreciate it.